Yeah, so we wrote this letter in response to FIFA signing a key sponsorship deal with Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco, as you said, is the biggest oil and gas company on the planet. They've also emitted the most greenhouse gases of any organization in the world. And they are mostly funded by the Saudi state, who we know have a history of human rights abuses, particularly towards women. So those are the details. But aside from that as well, I think as footballers and as female footballers, I guess you guys would have got a good feel for it as well in the 2023 World Cup about the power and the potential that game has, but also the culture that women's football has fostered over the years. And we didn't get to that by accident. I think playing overseas and learning about the history of women's football, you realize that women have been fighting for generations and even centuries just to be playing on the pitch, and to have that place on the pitch now and to have a global audience. I think we feel a really strong responsibility to ensure that we carry that torch on, but also that we make sure that the game is in a good place, not just on the pitch, but off it too, for the future generations.
And Aramco will sponsor both the 2026 Men's World Cup and the 2027 Women's World Cup. So there are concerns that this partnership with FIFA reinforces this sports washing and the human rights violations of women and LGBTQI people.
Yeah, it's a real concern for us and our footballing community. I think the fans in particular are really getting behind the messages that the players are carrying, and it's not ideal to see our governing body aligning with an organization that just doesn't align with those values of equality and cohesiveness and inclusion that women's football has worked so hard to create over these years.
And FIFA's released a statement claiming it values its partnership with its sponsors, including Aramco, and that the revenue goes back into women's football.
Yes, it's not really so much about where the revenue goes, but it's where it comes from. And I think when we go back to the fact that this is the biggest oil and gas company in the world, I think we're pretty clear that this is not the future that we are aspiring to. I think oil and gas has played its part in the past, but it has no place sponsoring the future. And I think, as athletes, as people within the game, we want to see a brighter future for us. And there are now organizations with so much ingenuity and passion for a better world. And we would love to see our governing body aligning with that so that we can wear our sponsors proudly on our chest, as opposed to getting our World Cup shirt and having a sponsor that doesn't align with us on the back of our shirts or even on the front.
And there have been atrocities committed, but Saudi Arabia has made historic strides in women's rights. Women are now allowed to drive. There are more females in employment and education sectors. How can we use sport to maintain awareness but also instigate positive change?
Yeah, that's the challenge as well. I mean, we need to you look at the things that are going well, but also on the other hand, there are still atrocities being committed. And I think your point there, Danny, about the power of sport, I've been really excited to finally come back to New Zealand and Australia. And I think here in particular, sport is so ingrained in our culture, and it's a huge part of our identity. And it brings us together in ways that nothing else really does. And I think using that power of sport to really bring out the good in people and the good in the world, and to shift the way the world is heading to a more positive and brighter future. I think sport has a huge part to play in that, and we're just trying to do our little bit to ensure that we continue that momentum.